As anglers get better at finding and catching bass on your home lake, you'll find the bass become conditioned to the fishing pressure and are tougher to catch. You'll still find bass in the same seasonal locations year after year, but you'll have to work a lot harder to get them to bite. In this video, I want to show you how you can go against the grain and find areas with fewer fish that are easier to catch because they're just not getting fishing pressure. This is a strategy that's put a ton of nice fish in the boat for me over the past couple of years, and you'll be able to replicate it on your home lake after watching this video. Let's get into it.
And I'm just kind of going down the middle of this channel here. You can see I'm following that channel on the mapping. And there is a fish right there now in the middle of that little channel, that middle of that creek. And I'm kind of interested to see if there are fish setting up like that are right in the middle of these creek channels, or these deeper stretches winding into this creek. Maybe we can find some fish that are sitting really tight to the bottom and find a good group of them, or just some random fish here and there. Now that fish we saw there a second ago on 2D may have just been a catfish or drum or something, so I'm not getting too excited. But the main thing I need to find is, again, some type of better quality fish, and they may not be back in here, so it may take a bit of graphing and checking a few other spots, but I have a pretty good feeling about this creek because usually there are some good fish that spawn in here. And the spot right out here where we're basically graphing is just a channel swing bank, and this is a great wintering spot for these fish. So I'm sure you could go throw an Alabama rig and a jig and stuff down the bank here, catch a few fish, but I want to try to find some fish offshore here. So we're going to graph around and just see if there are any fish maybe out in some of this timber, or maybe out here in a little bit deeper water. We do have a nice little tree right there, though there's not really any fish around it. These are the kind of places I would expect to find some quality fish, or in the middle of these little guts, maybe around some brush, a little bit of a hard spot, a rocky bottom. I am starting to see a few random fish scattered on side scan though, just around. You can see one right over here and one right here. So that's kind of an interesting sign. Nothing that really stands out quite yet as a spot I want to fish, but we do have a really nice rocky point that sticks out here with some timber as well that looks kind of interesting. I'm going to switch over to this view again to see if we can see any fish on 2D. Not seeing anything again that really jumps off the screen at me in this moment, just because there's not a lot of bait or anything out here. But we are getting into some timber and some sticks and logs and all kinds of stuff, so there may be some fish even pushed further back up into this deal that we may want to check out. And I don't like to give up too soon and just graph for 5 minutes and then say, oh, there's nothing here. I want to be pretty thorough in checking these types of areas, because a lot of times they'll be set up in one little small spot. They might be one depression or something where you find a load of fish, and so you have to spend some time on the electronics a lot of times to find an area that might have something. I do like potentially that little stump right there. It looks like there might be a couple of fish on that stump. If we look at that on the downscan view, you can see that stump right there has a couple of dots around it. 1, 2. We're gonna mark that real quick, just as a fish icon. Nothing crazy that's making me super excited. There's actually a fish right there now up on that flat. That's a decent sized fish on the 2D sonar view, up in 10 foot, kind of off this point right here. And you can see that right here, another fish. And we were seeing a few fish kind of on that side scan view as well. We have a nice brush pile out to the right here that's kind of sticking out right there. It's a pretty hard bottom area. Oh, engine cut out. Need to give it a little more juice. Old engine. We're gonna spin back around though. I like that we saw 2 or 3 fish down that little stretch there. Gotta make sure I'm idling enough speed, apparently. I feel like there might be something going on right here, guys. We saw a decent arch. It wasn't anything crazy. There were a couple of fish around the stump there. The thing about this is that, again, you're not gonna see like hundreds of fish on these areas, but these fish will just winter and settle down on some of these isolated stumps, on some of these small pieces of cover. And I really want to look around on side scan, look around on this. You can actually see a fish suspended right around these stumps. Ooh, there we go. That's a good fish right there. On 2D, look at all those fish right there. They're stacked right in the middle of that little gut or drain right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we're looking for when we're trying to grab these shallower spots. It's only 15 feet of water, but you can see those fish clear as day. You have fish with good arches. Those are definitely bass on 2D, and you can see those dots right there very clearly on that downscan view. And we've now marked multiple fish in that area, which is a really good sign. And I don't think these fish are going to get much pressure because they're shallower than you would think to fish in February, January time of the year, and even though we are in a hot water lake, fish will be using that like 10 to 15 foot of water all through the winter. That's actually one of the best places to catch better quality fish in the wintertime, is in that 10 to 15 foot zone on a lot of lakes, even clearer lakes, because some fish, especially in the backs of these creeks, just don't go that deep at all throughout the year. So I'm not worried at all about the fact that we're in shallower water. Even again, if the water temps were 45 degrees, I wouldn't be worried about that.
Finding bass offshore with a fish finder can be a frustrating process, especially if you don't have the right settings on your fish finder. You could graph over a great school of fish, but with the wrong settings, you could completely miss it. That's why I created Sonar settings guides and put them on my website, fishthemoment.com. These are the settings I've used on all the different fish finders I've had on my boat over the years. They're specifically tuned to find bass, and I give detailed step-by-step instructions on how to change every single setting you need to get the clearest possible image, so you don't waste time on the water with bad settings. Definitely check out my Sonar settings guides at fishthemoment.com.
Might be a couple fish right there. Suspended up 40 feet out. See if we can get a bait over to him. You can see him swimming at 40 feet right on the bottom. Now they went right to the bottom. See if we can get our bait over there. Oh, look at them all. They're all coming up after it. They're following it now. Look at them all. Following it down to the bottom at 30 feet out. It's like 6 of them down there. One of you pick it up off the bottom. Come on. They're all over it. One of you just pick it up. Just get it. Come on. Oh, one's swimming over to it. No? No? Those are bass 100% because they came up and got all over it. There's more of them down there. We found a little spot right here. There's definitely fish in this little gut. We're casting like right on our waypoint. So those are those fish that we marked. So we definitely are around some bass. Now it's just a matter of, can we get them to bite? We have a north wind today. It is absolutely frigid. Don't know if we're gonna be able to really trick them into biting super well. There's a bunch of them on it though, right now. Come on. Bait's falling at 50 feet. There's a bunch of fish all around it right now. Come on, one of you eat it. Pick it up. Get it. Get it. Got him. On the Wacky rig, working it like the Demiki. Not a big one, but it's a fish. Got him. My goodness, that fish finally came over and ate it. Nice little fish. Stuck him on that Weedless Wacky shot. Bait's barely hanging on right there. Let's see if we can get back down there. We marked those fish. There's more of his friends down there too. Had to kind of shake it at him. See if this fish that's high up 20 feet out will come over and just play with my deal here. Come on. No? Maybe missed the cast. A couple of fish down there on the bottom. So that was almost right on our waypoint, which is pretty solid. It's just fish weren't that big. That's not the end of the world. I love this Weedless Wacky shot, guys, on these fish because it's just, they're not used to seeing anything like it. You can fish it around the cover. You can drop it on the bottom. You can fish it through this timber. You can work it like a Wacky rig. Super versatile bait. It's great from now. I mean, it's a year-round bait for me. It works great. This is the 1/8 ounce size. I probably should be throwing the lighter size, potentially. But, I mean, that fish ate it. So, oh, there's a few of them on it right now. Come on. What I like to do is, when I'm in the middle of a bunch of fish, I just shake my rod tip. I'm over a tree branch right now. There's a bunch of fish on my bait right now. 20 feet out, 30 feet down. I mean, I'm dropping it through the middle of that tree. So that's pretty awesome, because you can't really do that with a Demiki or anything like that. But you can fish this like a Demiki, so it just gives you a little bit more versatility. You can see him swimming right there. I don't know where my bait went. This is right on another waypoint, guys. Directly on another waypoint where we marked a fish. The wind is blowing me around so much. It's hard to kind of keep focused on what I'm looking at. See if I can see these fish again. There were 2 or 3 of them very clearly up there. fire up there and just see if we can drag through that area right through our waypoint. See if any of them kind of show themselves. It's a couple of fish you can potentially see on the screen there, 50 feet out. Don't know where my bait is. Oh, there it is. Bait's at 30. Okay. There's a couple of fish right here. You can see them 50 feet out. These little stick-ups. See if I can get my bait over to them. Directly on the waypoint I made. Directly on it. Looks like they might be swimming around looking at my stuff. It's kind of hard to tell. Can't see my bait very easily. Oh yeah, he's on it. He's swimming on it right now, 40 feet out. It's really hard to see him. There, he's following it again. Get it, fish. Got him. I watched him come up and get that. That's what I'm talking about. Good fish right here. Right on the waypoint we made. Good one. That's what I'm talking about. He absolutely inhaled that thing. Followed it to the bottom. Shaking it there. That weedless wacky shot, guys, is so good. I know I'm throwing this a lot, but it's like replacing my Demiki rig in less than 15 feet of water. It's just way more effective. You can do so much more with it. Give this camera. There we go. You can do so much more with it, guys, than you can with a standard Demiki rig, and it falls slow enough that it gets their attention. They love it. And you can see how I'm just grabbing these fish in the middle of this deal and putting them in the boat. That's a really solid 2.5 pounder. Not a ton of fish in here, but there's some decent ones, and enough that if I had, 3 or 4 creeks like this, you could put a decent bag of fish in the boat in an area where a lot of guys just aren't going to be fishing. And there's that weedless wacky. It's barely holding on to that worm. That worm's holding on as best it can. This is just a Senko, so the Senkos tear up pretty easily, but I really like a Senko on this deal. But there's that hook. Basically, it has a cable guard on it, and then it has a wire bait keeper, and it holds those Senkos really well, and the trocar hook in there just sticks some. So pretty fun. Really happy with that. Let's get another Senko on and try to see if we can catch another one. Okay, so we got another wacky shot rigged up here, or got our wacky shot re-rigged. There's a few fish on this little tree right in front of me, 40 feet out, right on another waypoint. I mean, directly on it, which is cool, because it just lets us know we can graft these fish. And there's a few more swimming into the picture right now. Look at those fish. They're underneath the boat right now. Don't know what they're doing down there. There's a bunch of them. My bait's getting in their area 40 feet out. There's like 5 or 6 of them swimming right to my bait. You gonna eat a fish? Oh no! He took my worm, I think. No! Dang it! He definitely took my worm. They swam right into my zone and they stole that worm. I set the hook too soon. Dang it! That was like the next cast. What in the world? These fish are just roaming and swimming through here. Let me get another worm on. Got him. There we go. On the jig. There we go. Old schooling them a little bit. Good fish right there. Oh my gosh. Had to pull out the jig because these fish were positioned a little bit funky on me, and I couldn't really use the forward facing, and I'll explain why. And this is why you got to be able to kind of adjust. Just got them on the old 3/4 ounce football jig with a Big Bite Baits college craw chunk on the back. Nice fish. So basically what's happening here, guys, is the wind's blowing me right into where the fish are, and it's basically impossible at the forward facing to actually watch my bait. I've got a couple of fish doing it, but it's not easy. And what's happening is that the wind is blowing directly into this point in front of me here. So there's a really nice point here. The wind's blowing directly into it, and these fish are setting up right where the base of this ditch meets this point. And so there's a bunch of fish up there, and I can see them swimming around on forward facing and actually pulling up off the bottom on the edge of this ditch. But to get my cast and everything right, I have to be so much on top of the fish, and I'm getting blown around so much that it's just making it impossible. So what I decided to do is just pick up a jig. and dragged that thing right where the ditch meets this point here. And we graphed these fish with side imaging, 2D, so we knew they were down there. And we're seeing them now in forward facing, but because of this wind and the angle of it, it's much easier to fish this just spot locked and firing our jig up there. And at this point, I'm just firing a jig on waypoints. I got my waypoints right here on my graph, and literally the fish I'm catching are directly on my waypoint. So you could catch these fish the same way I'm doing right now, just marking them, throwing a jig. Probably a swim bait would work as well, just working it real slow through here. But these fish are just so tight at the bottom, and it's just kind of a crappy day that I thought throwing this jig might be the way to go. And there's definitely some fish in the area. Just need to find the right casting angle and figure out kind of the right way to make it happen. And I think that this jig is going to be a lot easier to fish. And it just goes to show that really a lot of times there's more than one way to catch fish when you get into an area. You can catch them with forward facing, you can catch them without, throwing a jig, throwing the wacky shot. I think the wacky shot, if it was calm, would be more efficient with the forward facing, obviously. But you can catch them on the jig. And the big thing is just finding the fish. Finding fish is more important a lot of times than anything else. So if you can figure out how to get around them, find the right little stretch, you can catch them. You have to experiment with your techniques and everything like that, but you don't have to just use one bait or one retrieve or one something every time. Finding the fish is more important than anything. And that's it for this video, guys. We didn't crack them off the spot, but we did catch 3 fish, got a few more bites, and that's all within an hour of fishing. So not bad for just graphing the spot and picking it apart pretty quickly. We caught a few fish on that core tackle Weedless wacky shot. They were eating this pretty well. Also got a bite on the jig. I think that you could probably fish these areas with a jig and get a few bites, though you're gonna get more bites obviously using forward-facing sonar. But if you hit enough of these areas in the wintertime, you'll oftentimes find fish that are less pressured and are gonna be biting a little bit easier than other areas that are getting a lot of pressure in the winter. So definitely check these out on your local lake. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below. Also like the video and subscribe to Fish the Moment for more content like this. See you guys in the next video.